Dear friends, welcome to this fifth webinar of CineConf, powered by IMAX in association with Theatre World and Network 208. In today's topic, we shall discuss about the distribution horizon on how studios can strategize their content during this COVID-19 situation. For this today, we have Mr. Ajit Andhare from Viacom 18 Studios, Mr. Shariq Patel from Z Studios, Mr. Wal Chouf from IMAX, and Mr. Mukesh Mehta from E4 Entertainment. So today we are supposed to have Mr. Komal Natha moderating this session, but due to some issues, he is not able to make it. So in place of Mr. Komal, we have got Mr. Akshay Rati from Screen, who will be moderating this session. Before we start, we got a small video from Komal. Just he wanted to speak to our exhibitors.
Hello friends, good evening. I am Komal Nahata. We were supposed to meet at this webinar hosted by CineConf and Theatre World, but I'm extremely sorry. I have not been keeping too well and therefore have been advised rest. I will not be able to moderate this webinar. But here's wishing the CineConf webinar, Theatre World and Raghavendra Raghav the very best. I'm sure this webinar will progress and turn out to be a very enriching, entertaining as well as educative webinar. Also, let me wish good luck to the film industry and let's just hope that the lockdown is lifted soon, cinemas reopen soon, and the film industry continues to shine as it has been doing all these years. It continues to entertain people. And once again, my apologies to Raghavendra Raghav, Theatre World, and of course the panelists. Good luck.
Thank you, Komalji, for that. So for taking this conversation forward, I will request Mr. Akshay.
Thank you so much, Raghav, and a warm welcome to all the panelists and everyone from the audience who's tuned in to listen to all of us. Obviously, these, as everyone knows, these are testing times, and that applies to every segment of the value chain in the entertainment industry. The producers, the distribution and monetization sector, the exhibitors, everyone is feeling the heat of the current scenario. And hopefully dialogues such as these can, help us all engage with each other and with our audiences and stakeholders better in trying to find solutions to a mutually beneficial tomorrow for all of us. So let me, at the very very solemnly swear that I won't let my biases as a film exhibitor come into play, especially while I'm speaking to Ajit and to Shariq, who are the content creators, because we are seeing a lot of, a lot that's being spoken about through the media about film exhibitors and producers at war about bypassing the theatrical window. So that's a promise. I won't get my biases in there. So let me start this conversation with the beginning of the value chain, which is the content creators. That's Shariq and Ajit. And let me take your opening thoughts on how, as studios, you're dealing with, or what's your understanding of this current scenario of the COVID-induced lockdown. So we'll start with Shariq and come to Ajit. Go on, Shariq.
Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining in, and thanks, Akshay, for stepping in into Komal's very shoes he has for the industry and large standing that he has. It's as painful for us as it is for for any other industry. I think, especially given the fact that I think what's paining our industry the most, apart from not having the theaters open, or the lockdown not allowing the release of films, is actually production stopping, and that's really since that's where the value chain really spends the maximum amount of time in the in the production. With that not really happening, there seems to be a grinding halt of content being churned out, and that is what is really probably the biggest pain point for most of us as of right now. So that's to start off with. Ajit, over to you.
My friend Shariq said, because I think I got locked out at that time. But I think I'll essentially follow from what Akshay was trying to ask. So I think, look, this is, I don't think this is at all a time for any kind of a war within the value chain. If at all there is an issue of a very black swan-like situation for the entire value chain, and this is an external shock which is applicable to every single member. So I am absolutely unaware of terms like bypassing and all of that, because I think what everybody is trying to do is look and manage what is their situation, manage their P&L, try and unlock their working capital or investments and so on and so forth. And I think any framing of this entire discussion should be in two parts. One is, how do we tackle this immediate problem, because nobody gave us any notice of this. So we've got, of course, a lot of working capital out there, a lot of investment which needs to be unlocked as content creators. Equally for exhibitors, of course, they have their fixed assets which need content. So I think each of us in this phase one have a problem to solve. And then comes the phase two, which is when there is some sort of a restoration of demand and some kind of a restoration of supply both. Then how do we engage? And I really don't think that this is the time to find what are going to be the new rules of engagement, if at all there will be new rules. For phase two, I think we should discuss that once the bigger problem of supply and demand restoration is addressed. So at the moment, if we frame it in phase one, I think from a content creator point of view, those people who have got major or medium sized or whichever sized assets, I think their job number one should be to really unlock value whichever way they can. And I think if that means finding a way to get your product out to the consumers through the digital channels, then I think it makes eminent sense. And I don't think that means any kind of bypassing or a problem with the exhibition sector. I'm sure exhibition sector understands that this is and should be taken into confidence and be made a partner to this kind of a conversation, that look, this is what we are doing, which doesn't mean that this is going to be the new normal. We are doing this because we are right now stuck here. We want you to be party to these decisions. It also requires understanding from the digital platforms, who not only will have to sort of help solve the big piece in terms of the whole economy, economic equation, what is the value they are offering, and so on and so forth. So it will require them to be generous, understand, plug the gap. It will require the exhibitors to be understanding, and then we can at least solve problem one, which is take the stock which is in the industry out to the consumer, because that unlocks value, that unlocks capital, which is good for the entire value chain. Because if the capital rolls over, it comes back, then we can tackle the subsequent problem, which is about what to do when supply is to be restored and fresh stock. So I would really view this in phase one and phase two, and I think this is a time when most amount of collaboration is needed. And I don't see anyone really not sort of sensing the same same theme of collaboration. I think everybody's on board with that, and I think that's where we are. So we are really hoping to see some resolution, see some of the bigger films. It's been a while. We have I think Komal himself talked about it. We've heard about these things, but what the problem is that we still haven't heard about a concluded deal. And that's not the best thing, I would say. I mean, it's like the government stimulus package that we are all waiting for, and we are permanently waiting for. Look, before blaming the government, we should see within our industry, are we able to solve for 4 big films? So I think really that to me is point one. Then we can go to point two and the other problems that I'm sure we'll discuss on as we go forth.
Sure. Moving onwards, from the two producers who are on the panel, to Mr. Mukesh Mehta, who wears two hats. Not only is a producer of regional content, primarily in the Malayalam and Tamil space, he is also a distributor for the theatrical format for a lot of Hindi and Hollywood films, besides his own, in the regional languages. Mukeshji, what, according to you, is are we seeing some light at the end of the tunnel? And when we do get to the end of this lockdown, and when we do see cinemas opening up, how do you think is the audience going to respond to this post-COVID scenario or the post-lockdown scenario while something like COVID still exists without a vaccine for a while, perhaps?
Good evening to all of you. Thanks, Akshay, for taking over, and wishing a speedy recovery to Komalji also. Akshay, to start with, I think South is in a better position because still we are film crazy. The kind of crowds which come to the theaters on the opening day for big budget films is still, for others in North, it will be very difficult to understand. And luckily, there are some big contents which are ready to be released, which has been held up because of this COVID. I am a firm believer, and I've always be that best viewing experience only can come from theaters. And I'm very sure it will take time. It is not that it is going to be easy, but it will take time, and people will definitely come back to theaters. As for what happens when we open the theaters is $1 million question. Uh, the only way forward for all of us is we have to first forget that any of us will be able to make any money on the products that we have on hand and for the properties, like even for an exhibitor or what do you call your PVR or Inox or any whether it is the big Hindi films. I don't think we will get back that same collection which was there last year, because there definitely will be only 50% occupancy being allowed initially, or a 75% occupancy being allowed. The shows will be less. I don't know about the pricing of the ticket. How will people react to bigger pricing? So all these are big questions which can be answered only when the screens open. But we have to forget that we can't cut each other anymore. We cannot take an exhibitor for granted, vice versa. An exhibitor cannot be dictating terms to a small producer, because it has to be a scenario where all of us sit down and understand that all of us are in trouble, and only if all of us can come out of this mess, we will be successful from next year onwards. So right now, how do we hang in? That is the biggest answer we will all have to give to this question.
Sure. Thank you. Coming to you, Walt. Obviously, I mean, with your presence, Walt, across the world, you'd obviously have a more clued-in view of what's happening across the world in this COVID, scenario. And obviously, some markets like Texas have started to open. Hong Kong has announced that it's starting to open up cinemas from the 15th of this month. So, how's the world or the exhibition sector across the world responding to this scenario?
Yeah, actually, Hong Kong is opening this weekend, so we're adjusting. That was a surprise to us. We're adjusting to that and figuring out what to do. We've been talking to the partners. We're essentially going to reopen with existing, IMAX DMR content. In this case, is probably Bloodshot. So we're adjusting there. As for the domestic market for North America, I can't really comment. I haven't talked to my colleagues who manage and head up the domestic market over the past couple of days, but certainly is a situation where, from my understanding, although the state, like a state like Texas or Georgia in the United States, is allowing theaters to reopen, I think the majority of our partners, our main partners in those states, are taking very careful measures to reopen. So they're not necessarily opening at the same time the governor says you're allowed to open. So we have great partners around the world who are doing the best thing possible for our customers and our audience. So we're seeing some measured openings in other markets too. We're now working on a possible reopening in Vietnam. The situation seems to be under control there. And currently, we've had South Korea and Taiwan open all this time, and we've been doing a lot of just classic movie title bringbacks. So these are movies that we released in IMAX. They've been top hits, and we're going to do the best we can to work with them on some sort of ticket promotion, get them back into the theaters. They're doing everything in their sort of measured, safe way to get people back in, and so it's really about working with our partners, our cinema partners in each country, to make sure that we're doing the best steps possible with them leading the way.
Sure. Thank you, Walt. Coming back to you, Shariq, as a studio, Zee's invested in various films that are at different stages of production. A few are complete, a few have been sanctioned, a few are in the middle of production. And obviously, the call that you take for each one will differ depending on the timeline that it will take for them to be complete, and depending on the exhibition scenario across the world. So for the films that are ready and that can be looked at, for an immediate release soon after the studios, after the cinemas are open, obviously you are facing a scenario where cinemas may have staggered seating, may not be able to play to full capacity, may have to reduce the average ticket price to make it lucrative enough for audiences to come. So for a scenario like this, how do you as a studio intend to look at things? Because the cost that you have incurred on making those films was a normal scenario. But how do you look at tackling that?
So yeah, it's we have three films which are where the shooting was complete. Gunjan Saxena was actually scheduled to release in March, and then we postponed that because of Suryavanshi pulling forward, and then Angrezi Medium pulling forward, and then we decided to just give Angrezi Medium because that was also father-daughter story. Gunjan Saxena is also at the core a father-daughter story. So we decided to come in April. So we, as it is, pushed it back, and we wanted to come last financial year. All those pressures were there, but I think Karan, Dharma, and us decided, okay, let's do what is best for the film, and we decided April was the date. We got Khali Pili, which is a collaboration with Ali Abbas Zafar. Again, luckily we shot all of that. I think there's just maybe one day of patchwork, if at all required. For that was scheduled for June, and then there was a film that is our in-house production called Suraj Pe Mangal Bhari, which is Diljit and Manoj, and we managed to complete the principal photography of that on 16th March, literally a couple of days before the industry was shutting down. Lockdown came, say, a week later. So yeah, so all of these are mid-sized films, and they were all scheduled to release, as I said, when March, April for Gunjan, June for Khali Pili, and August, September is what we were aiming for Suraj Pe Mangal Bhari. Apart from that, there was one small horror film that we were shooting, which was being shot in our own studios in Jaipur. Unfortunately, that had to stop production. And then there was a couple of more films, three films which were supposed to go on floor in March and April, which have all now got pushed till post lockdown. And once we feel it's safe to start shooting again, we would. So you're absolutely right. I mean, the point is that there is the evaluation, and what we do, we are actually going product wise and saying that this is what is ready, this is when we were supposed to do it, this is what was the P&L for the film that we were chasing. These are the compulsions for us to this is what we were hoping to post the collection of this film would feed the next one, which is scheduled to go on floor in June, July. So it's a cycle. It's working capital. It's capital which is locked up. And I think what all of us have to take a mature stance in saying that it's about only when you liquidate the assets of of what you already have. And this is not just us. I mean, of course, we're talking about films, but all with FMCG is moving fast. So I mean, if I take away FMCG, I mean, if you take the consumer durables, if you take cars or whatever, I mean, they need to offload stock before they can go hammer and tongs in producing other things. So this is literally, it's like the pipeline has been shut for the last 2 months for everything. Now for the pipeline to start and for it to flow again, there is certain decisions that will be taken across the value chain, which might seem a little silly to the other people, saying why do you do it, why do you not hold on? But all the decisions which will be taken will be for the benefit of the industry, because once you liquidate asset A, the money which comes over there, we're not taking right? I mean, we need to get into another product and maybe a bigger film which is waiting for that investment, and release 6 months later, 1 year later, whenever it is. So I think it's very important to look at it project product wise. And for us, throughout the strategy was, let's get clarity, let's come out of lockdown and then take the final decision. So a lot of those decisions which a lot of rumors which have been floating around multiple movies, everyone is waiting for March 3rd, March 4th. Unfortunately, the lockdown has got extended till 17th, and in certain states it's gone even longer. So I think everyone will be taking those decisions now in terms of finalizing any of the deals that are that are there on the table, and if the price is right, I'm sure people will go ahead and do the deals. If the price is not, and if we don't think that we're getting the right value for the asset, believe you me, no one's going to do this at values that don't make sense for the producer. So that's pretty much in a nutshell.
Sure, but when it comes to taking that decision, obviously the value chain has been functioning in a way that's very very robustly in sync with each other's ways. So would it be important enough to engage with the distribution in the exhibition sector while taking these calls, because by negotiating and by talking, maybe there are solutions that can be found, which can probably help in in letting that working capital flow all over again. So
You're,
are
no, you're absolutely.
studios or the producers engaging with the value chain yet?
Yeah, so I think some sort of engagement at one-off levels are happening between various individuals. But I think the real issue right now, Akshay, is that we don't know when this is going to end. Is it 1st June? Is it 15 June? Is it 1st July? Is it 15 July? There's absolutely no clarity. So I guess if someone can stand up and say, hey, this will be done and we are sure 1st July or 1st June or 15 June, this is going to be sorted and cinemas will be on and this is what will be allowed. Of course, decisions will be taken. But right now, with the limited information everyone has, people are taking decisions on the basis of that for their own, specific, businesses. So once the information is available to everyone and the decisions are clear, absolutely everyone sit across the table and find solutions.
So coming back to you, Ajit, Viacom again is a studio that's been doing a lot of content and across the range. If you do a Manto, you also do a Padmavat. So you have been doing stuff across the range, across the spectrum, across the scale. Now, obviously, going ahead till there is a vaccine, there's no doubt about the fact that the entire consumption cycle would be altered in some sense. It may be a spike for some avenue, it may be a shortfall for the other. And obviously, your budgeting and your planning around projects will depend on the altered cycle, which will be different for different kinds of films. Do you see a scenario where you'll have to probably go back to the to the working table and replan every film's commercials, appeals, scripts, and a whole lot of other things? Because for a Lal Singh Chadda, which is in production, which has a certain degree of budgets and certain revenue projections, again, like we said earlier with Shariq, they will change till there is a vaccine, until normalcy is restored in the absolute sense. And maybe that's not happening in a while. So does that require the production sector to go back to the drawing table and rework all these projects to make them feasible in the current scenario?
I don't think there's a choice there, and I don't think it's a good to do. It's absolutely need to do, simply because, look, we are talking about uncertainty, but what is certain is that we have lost as an industry 6 months. It started in March, and I don't think there is any revenue rolling in, at least in theatrical side, till July, August, because I think as leaders, we will also have to start providing some kind of a framework to think through this problem. Because the more we talk about uncertainty, we are not helping any team, which is being led by us. So I think we can look at it in scenarios. It's fairly clear to say that if anything, in terms of a theatrical revenue or a theatrical exhibition opening before August, you will have to be really lucky. And of course, if a drug or vaccine comes magically, you keep hearing that news every now and then. That's aside. But 6 months is gone. So you really don't have a solve for those 6 months. And what you're really talking about post that is also a phase of a reduced demand, because even then, after, let's say, the government and the statutory restrictions are out, the footfalls will not be restored to normalcy. People will be apprehensive, and even if you have people coming in, there'll be measures in terms of distance and so on and so forth. So again, another phase where normalcy of footfalls will not be restored. And then comes a phase when we are, let's say, post all of this, when we are saying, okay, and I have no doubt that normal phase will also come. And while it is looking very sort of distant today, and we are questioning when I hear this word, the most often word that I've heard in the last 4 weeks is the world has changed. I think we are overdoing this world has changed. I mean, whether it's South as Mukeshji was mentioning, or whether it's India, I think the love of cinema in a dark room is something which can't be replaced. We have seen many, other format interventions that have happened, whether it's a VCR, whether it's the earlier, the advent of television. But the basic fundamentals of demand is not going to change. It's a question of timing and phasing. So as leaders, I think we need to recognize the problem is timing, problem is phasing, and therefore the answer is in windowing. And I think, to me, anyone who's sitting with a film which does not have a very massive reliance on theatrical revenue simply should go ahead with the digital release and keep the cycle flowing. I think it equally applies to the larger films, because you cannot hold on to such large capital. And right now what is happening is cash is king. So any kind of cash inflow is helping corporates, producers, mid-size, small-size companies survive. And without cash, how are we going to survive? We're going to be bankrupted. So we need to address that problem. We need to let the cash come in. The cash can come in from the digital platforms, and at least part of the problem can be addressed. And once I think that is addressed, and I think Shariq also alluded to that, then of course we are talking about a phase where some of the films will be released in theaters. They may not find a full theatrical collection, we know, but we will have to go with that. We will have to go with a reduced collection, get through that phase till we arrive at a full normalcy, which I think at the outer is what, maybe a year or so. So I think we can possibly just gulp this year down somehow and come, sort of survive it. We will still be in a fairly robust. I mean, just look at how the last year closed. We had one of the best years in Bollywood. We had the highest amount of footfalls. We had the greatest collections. So the fundamentals of the business is not only in great shape, but it's actually a growing from wherever it has been in the last 3 or 4 years. So I think to me, it's a timing problem. It's a phasing problem. And that will also flow into how we are designing our future projects. But future we can't address till we address our stock, which is stuck right now. And I think that really becomes the primary issue. For example, Lal Singh Chadda massively into production. How do we find a release? When do we find a release? I think those questions are taking precedence over subsequent project planning and drawing of fresh films or fresh content.
Sure. Coming back to you, Mukeshji, the last webinar that we had with the same organizers, with Theatre World and IMAX, there was a segment where, value chain members from the Southern fraternity came and spoke about the issues that they are facing and the way they foresee the future. And I was actually, as an exhibitor who operates in Central India, I was insanely amazed by the degree of enthusiasm that they had around the prospects of the future. If I may use Hindi and, just throw in a bit of humor, the exhibitors down south really believe that जिस दिन cinemas खोले उस दिन आग लगा देंगे. And a lot of exhibitors up north are hoping कि आग ही लग जाए, insurance से शायद कुछ मिल जाएगा. So I don't know, for some reason there seems to be a lot of faith that the exhibitors down south have in their content. And for some reason, that degree of faith doesn't seem to be on display up north. So what is it that filmmakers down south are doing right, which has obviously resulted in, the kind of insanely amazing collections that you see down south, which has resulted in the density of cinemas being double of what it is up north? So what's it that content creators or the industry as a whole is doing so right down south that perhaps we seem to be missing out on?
Yeah, Akshay, one thing what I would like to say over here is, as Ajit ji and Shariq ji said, see, almost all the productions have exhausted the cash what they've had on their films. So unless and until whether, there's no guarantee for a theatrical release in the near future. So that could be one of the reasons why, 2D Entertainment, they already invested monies in 4 films. Now, where do they find money to fund whatever they have on hand to complete? So if somebody comes to them with a good proposal, they are not going to take that money home. They are not going to put that money in a fixed deposit. That is what the value chain should understand. See, they have a choice. You have a choice. What do you have a choice? Whether you want 2D Entertainment to close down permanently, or whether they sell the film onto a digital platform and reinvest their money into the products which they have on hand, or they make a bigger film with Surya again. See, all of us are going to survive only if films come back, if we go on making films. I think hardly from the film industry you would find any producer having put, made money on a film and put that in, separately into a fixed deposit and again went back for the next film and made money. No, nobody has done that. At least I have not been able to do that in the last 40 years. I have been making films, whatever money we make again. Only stars. So even now the star is stuck. JGC, now for the first time, Vijay is involved in the production of Master. Okay. And he has shown a, remuneration of 80 crores. Now he is in a position today, if Master has to release, he will have to forget 50% of that remuneration for the film to release. Because otherwise that producer will not be able to release the film. And unfortunately, he cannot release that film on the digital platform because it's too big a film. and the projected business is 180, 190 crores. Now that kind of money is not going to come from digital platform. So as yourself and Shariq said that for whatever films, where you can encash, and I'm again saying that we may not be able to get back whatever we have invested. If we get back 80%, today it is rather better to take that 80% rather than wait for 120 or 125% after 7 months or 8 months, for which there is no guarantee. And one more thing is, see, our products are perishable, right? Now, people may remember something of whatever films we have made now, but 6 months down, 7 months down, when the theaters open, there will be a line of all the biggies which will want to release. Then what will happen to the small films? Nobody will even want to play the small films. The same exhibitors who are telling today, don't release your film, we will give you the theaters. Tomorrow they will not give you a theater if they are going to get the bigger films. Then from next year onwards, even the Hollywood flow is going to be very huge because everything has been pushed to next year. So from January 1st next year, it is going to be too many films at the box office. Only, as Shariq said, that no deals are happening. I have also been hearing that, Amazon is talking for so many films. I have also been trying to sell 2 of my films. I have been sending quotes to everybody. But till now, we have not been able to sign on the dotted line. So, Akshay, we have to remember one thing. We can only fight this battle together, Akshay. We cannot, if the exhibitor should not feel bad, today, suppose if an exhibition chain is being picked up by PVR under these bad circumstances, can a distributor go back and tell to that exhibition chain, hey, you cannot sell your exhibition chain to PVR? He will obviously do it if he's getting money today because he's not certain about tomorrow, right? So the same thing happens to a film also. Now suppose if somebody is paying a big money or is recovering the cost of whatever film that has been sold onto the Amazon platform, he has done that because he is lucky enough to recover. So as a producer, I should feel happy. At least one producer has escaped. Even I have not been able to sell my film. At least he is lucky that he has sold his film. And I am very sure that money, whatever is going to come in, is going to invest it back into films only. This is my personal opinion because I'll be ripped apart for saying this.
Sure, bro. But having said that, it still doesn't answer the question that I had originally asked about, what is the Southern fraternity doing right that it's so robustly generating the kind of business that it is. I distinctly remember a couple of Diwalis ago, we had one of our blockbuster films, which was Golmaal 4. And on the same day, there was a Tamil film, again featuring Vijay, by the way, called Mirsal. And out of Tamil Nadu alone, with the cap that ticket pricing has in Tamil Nadu, both the films pretty much did the same business. Golmaal's film from the entire country was pretty much at par with Mirsal's film from just Tamil Nadu. And, that's exactly what makes a lot of us wonder that there's something that's going right there. So that's what I wanted to address, sir.
Akshay, you have answered your own question. It's the cap on the ticket prices. So it's still the cheapest entertainment available. And don't be surprised, the biggest answer to this is the single screens down south. The major revenue is from the single screens. It is not from the multiplexes. We are not happy playing pictures in multiplexes and getting 30% share on the 3rd or 4th week, where the terms in a single screen, the distributor may be getting 50 to 55%. Suppose if it's a Vijay's film, the terms are 75, 70, 65, 60, 55, 50. And even in Kerala, the universal terms, it is 60, 55, 50, irrespective of film. As long as your film does not touch holdover, it is 50%. Now, if your film runs, if my film runs in PVR at Lulu Mall, even at 90% or 95% occupancy, the share which I get is 30%. So the distributor is not getting any money. I'm not saying that PVR is wrong, but people do come to PVR to see films. And one more thing, Akshay, is in Andhra, it is on a rental system. So if you take a film like Bahubali, the first week share to the distributor is 90% of the collection. 90%. So the share amounts will differ. For which film you will get more than 52.5% for the Hindi belt, you tell me? You will not get.
So maybe we'll see emergence of single screens after this again, right? Single screen and drive-in theaters. I think that's the way to go for it.
I am a firm believer. In fact,
do that because I run a chain of single screen cinemas, But having said that, that's actually a discussion I want to come back to Ajit and you for. But before that, coming back to you, Walt, IMAX again is a format that enhances the experience for users in the theatrical format. And a lot of people truly believe that the future of the theatrical medium is the premium large format. Now, this could be 3D, this could be 4DX, and this could be IMAX. And that is possibly because, for the kind of movies that come on the IMAX format, the experience of watching a movie is enhanced a great deal. So in this revival that we are gonna, have to work on, how much of a role does a format like IMAX play in incentivizing people to come back to the theaters?
Yeah, we work very hard to make sure that, internally we call it IMAX DNA. We work with some of the biggest filmmakers in the world to try to either film the movie and capture the movie with our IMAX film or digital cameras. And there's another way, which is to do in post-production and work with filmmakers and studios to create the movie, create like an exclusive aspect ratio. So if you've ever stepped into an IMAX theater, there's a 1.9 aspect ratio in the theaters in India. And so it's a little bit taller, in fact, is much taller than your normal screen. And so what we do is we make sure to take advantage of that canvas. And so, we've got movies this year like Detective Chinatown 3, Wonder Woman 1984, Tenet, Nolan's Tenet, filmed almost entirely with our IMAX film cameras. The new James Bond movie, No Time to Die, Dune, Warner Brothers Dune, and then Top Gun Maverick. These are films that, they provide a valuable proposition that no other screen can get, and that's that these filmmakers captured the movie with IMAX cameras or enhanced the picture and sound with in post-production. And so we feel that no matter how the landscape is going to change, IMAX is always going to exist. There's always going to be people who wants to see Avengers Endgame, which was filmed entirely with IMAX digital cameras. And they want to go see it in the IMAX theaters first before any of these new windows and the new landscape of how these platforms are going to shapeshift in the future.
Sure. Thank you. Coming back to you, Shariq and Ajit, again, just in tune with what Walt and Mukeshji said, perhaps the way to, make this exhibition sector revive is to actually start creating content that is experienced in a very different manner with various value adds that the exhibition sector brings in. So Ajit, you've had a Padmavat which you released, and there's no way as hell that I can enjoy a Padmavat on the best home theater system that I may have, like you can perhaps in IMAX or in a cinema hall with Dolby 7.1 or even better with Dolby Atmos. So do you think a time has come where as creators you'll have to start demarcating between the kind of content that you make for the theatrical format, where everything from the writing to the casting to the production values to the cinematography and the sound design changes in a manner that the theatrical format can really add value to it? So are we looking at a time when as creators you'll start creating that demarcation and start crafting films specifically for the theatrical format and let OTT and satellite be the ancillary?
Shariq, you're going first. How are you doing this?
Go ahead. He said Padmavat.
Oh. I think this is a time when we are trying to not talk product innovation and not talk product customization to one channel, however central that channel may be to our making. I don't think anybody makes a film for a digital platform even today. Even when you are making a small film, you ask anyone who has written it from the earliest stage to the director, I think they're all making it for the large screen and in a dark room. So I think every film is made that way. Of course, there will be a scale that will come in depending on the obvious parameters such as the cast and what value it will pull into theaters. But I think to me, the more important aspect is really not to confuse the draw of the theatrical audience with the current challenge that there is. I don't think that there is any problem with the draw of the theatrical audience, and whether we make more theatrically attractive products, whether formats such as IMAX or 3D or whatever else we do, I think those things will have their own rhythm. I think primarily the issue is how do you look at the value chain? And in the value chain at the moment, I am seeing opportunity, and the opportunity is if there is content and if there is an opportunity for it to engage with the consumer, it should happen, because we will be getting into a point of glut very soon. And any which way, the small and medium films are going to be completely encroached. I think Mukeshji's very, very rightly spelled it out. So what surprises me is why deals aren't happening. What data point people are waiting for? What new news needs to come in for at least some of these films to clear out, so that we have lesser films which are, piling on at the restart point whenever that restart happens. Now I think it's a little hard to think about crafting products only for theatrical at this point in time. I'm thinking of this analogy when they tell you in an aircraft that if there is a drop in cabin pressure, you first put the oxygen mask to yourself and then put it on your kid. So I'm not thinking of what candies to give to this kid and how to keep him happy. I'm first looking for an oxygen mask to put to myself so that I can put an oxygen mask to the kid. We'll think about these candies and softies and entertainment for the kid later. I mean, that's really not on top of mind right now.
So, Shariq, coming to you, I mean, it was interesting that you actually responded to Mukeshji when he was talking about the value addition that the single screens add to the monetization cycle down south. Now, obviously, there's no way that a Maruti car is going to run with aviation fuel. And similarly, for the single screens, it's got to be the right kind of content that appeals to their audiences that will really fuel their growth. And very often, you hear people from the government, people from the industry talking about how India should become like China and have 80,000 screens. Now, that obviously is not happening only in the metros or the big 10 cities of India, which are fairly saturated with exhibition infrastructure already. The growth, if it all, is going to be in the tier 2, tier 3 towns. And as much as you can make a beautiful movie like a Shubh Mangal Savdhan or a Ship of Theseus, and you can have the best cinema theater in a town like, let's say, Dhanbad or in a Sultanpur, it won't work there. So somewhere the growth of this exhibition sector also has to happen with the right kind of content that appeals to the tastes of those audiences. So is that a thought in your minds as content creators?
Absolutely. So I want to just touch the point. We've been discussing this. Just to backtrack a little, I think just to set the record straight from my point or my observation, which has happened thanks to lockdown, is I'm convinced that human beings are not meant for isolation. They're not meant to be sitting at home. I think all of us are reached one stage of, cabin fever at home and everyone's just wanting to get out. So the whole point of when the cinema chains are allowed to be open, I'm absolutely certain there'll be enough and more people dying to, actually that's a bad example. I mean, that's a bad phrase to use. Would be just like looking forward to getting out and just experiencing life as they experienced it before. Right now, for that to happen, there are two predominant things. One is, of course, the fear. The fear psychosis is, the virus is not going away anywhere in a hurry. Should I go over there? Someone's mom will say, "Kya beta, why are you going? Abhi mat jao, let it all abate." There'll still be people, who'll do it. So there's a fair amount of percentage who'll go back to cinemas immediately, as such. I mean, the entire dating crowd will get back, to doing that entire thing. That's one. The other is the overall economic impact, which is going to be there across the board, across the world, is what I think all of us, we don't know how much. Whether GDP will be at 1% growth in India, will go negative, world will be in recession or depression, no one knows that. So automatically there'll be some amount. So the point is, by normalcy, I mean once people are allowed to go out and feel safe to go out and have got enough money in the pocket for as disposable incomes, the cinema chains will thrive again and content creators will thrive again in terms of in terms of revenues and footfalls and things like that. I have no doubt in that. Now, whether that takes 6 months or 1 year, that's debatable, and we don't know how that goes. Now, coming back to your question of in terms of creating for, I don't think it's, there are so many creators, there are so many stories being told, there are so many, we really are the most prolific filmmaking, country in the world. There are multiple regional languages. There is something being made for everyone, and I think, I think water finds its own level. So all of us, if you just look at, the set in London and US, English anglicized rom-com is dead, right? I mean, that you haven't seen one of those even from Dharma for the longest time, right? So it's become the Desi romances and things like that. So I think the trends, the producers do catch on, that the talent does catch on. I think the current crop of actors who are there extremely, they've got the ears to the ground, and they are looking at crafting, stories which they think can appeal to their particular, audiences, as such. So I think there'll be enough and more content being made in different languages, appealing to different strata of society, to different mindsets, different languages. So I think that is something that is going to happen, or has been happening and will continue to happen. I think as studios, we tend to give a little, especially all of us based out of Bombay, tend to give a little bit of extra, this thing to the Hindi films. But we had also made some sort of, headways. We're trying to do something in, in Punjab. We are looking at the South seriously. Marathi, of course, we are one of the leading, studios which are there. So I think it'll, I think content will be made for a pan-India market, for different pockets by different makers, and and things will revive.
So coming back to you, Mukeshji, and especially since you also distribute films, once the cinemas open, which hopefully would be July or August, it's obviously a chicken and egg scenario. The producers, especially the ones who have tentpole films, they'll be waiting to see how the audiences respond to the opening up of cinemas. And similarly, cinemas and perhaps even the audiences will be waiting for that one tentpole film that will be compelling enough to bring them back to the cinemas. So what do you think is the way forward? Do you think a tentpole film needs to take that leap of faith to kickstart this consumption cycle again? Or do you think it'll be the smaller films that will have to test the waters, set the habit of going to the, to the theaters back on track, and then should we have tentpoles coming in?
No, Akshay, I don't buy that logic of playing smaller films to get back the crowd in, because if you want the crowd back into theaters, you will have to have a tentpole film. And I don't know, maybe in South at least, even the exhibitors could get ready and pick up a tentpole film and release it, which may not happen in North. Because here, as it is, exhibitors are used to paying minimum guarantees and stuff like that. So actually, even in North, if all your single screen exhibitors get together and buy Surya Vamshi and release the film, okay, in any way you're losing you're losing some money, yeah. Okay, chalo, when Surya Vamshi you lose 1 lakh more, but at least let us kickstart, let us bring back the audience. See, if you don't have confidence, see, the biggest problem, at least in South, even today, the exhibitors take some amount of risk, Akshay. They do pay minimum guarantees. But in North, no exhibitor takes risk, including you. You don't pay a minimum guarantee for a film. You never want to take risk. You always want to play on the shoulder of the producer. Change that thought. Only if the producer survives, the theater will survive. If the producer is not there, no theater will survive, Akshay. So there has to be
a similar scenario, right? The minimum guarantees, theaters may not survive.
No, they are surviving. Why are you saying it will not survive? In Tamil Nadu, you tell me how many theaters have closed. On the contrary, people are spending 1 crore of rupees to renovate their theaters. You tell me, in South, every exhibitor today wants a 2K, 4K Dolby system. I'm talking about single screens. I'm not talking about multiplexes. And distributors are happy with single screens because they are the ones who give them the shares. The multiplexes is only for buying popcorn, and you can't go and whistle inside a multiplex, Akshay. You have seen films in single theaters in South, so I don't have to explain that to you.
Right. Coming back to you, India obviously is a very, very nascent market for IMAX right now, where we can actually count, the number of screens that IMAX has rolled out on our fingers in some sense. It's not even 50 screens so far. But obviously, with the kind of market that India is, with the kind of consumption patterns that India has, with the concept of hero worshipping, our stars that exists in India, I really think that IMAX as a format actually add a lot of value to the Indian consumers' viewing experience or entertainment experience. So what do you think is the way to crack that, formula to roll this format out in a much bigger way in a market like India?
Yeah, you know what? You say we're nascent. I don't think we're nascent. I think we've been in the market since the beginning of the 2000s. So in 2003,
Sorry, Walt, I meant Walt, sorry to interrupt you. I meant it in terms of the count of screens. If you compare
yes,
to, the developed nations like a US or a China, or even
yes.
some of the European markets, the number of IMAX screens, I'm not saying they're less, I'm just saying they're way too less compared to what it should be. That's what I meant when I said nascent.
Yeah, okay. If you want to compare size, yes, we're a bit nascent, but we have been in the marketplace since the early 2000s. We opened up with the Hyderabad Theater with Prasad's. So we've been around for a while. I think my point being, we've learned a lot from being around in the market all this time. We worked with Ajit on Padmavat, and so we want to do more Indian pictures. I think the key is we need to increase our output of Indian pictures, and we're trying to do the best we can. We're gonna do a better job of that in the future. You guys know better than I do. It's fragmented. There's different languages, different dialects, different cultures all throughout India. And so as we grow with the network, we got to figure out ways to grow in certain parts, in certain regions of India with the different type of films that are being produced out of those regions. So the answer is more Indian pictures, that's for sure.
Sure, thank you. I mean, we're pretty close to our time for closing this. But before that, from all of you, I mean, if there are any closing remarks that any of you would like to make about the way forward, or whereas you, as studio heads, as distributors, or as supporting units to the exhibition sector, what's your wish list in terms of where do you want to see this going, our sector, our industry? So we'll start with Shariq and Ajit again. Shariq, you want to go?
No, I think I think there's a fair amount of dialogue which happens between the studios and the multiplexes and with the exhibition chains. I think absolutely. I think that dialogue needs to continue, and we need to understand that it's a symbiotic relationship. We need you as much as you need us, and I'm sure that once we figure when this entire thing is ending, we will sit on the table again and and find out and make sure that the entire industry does revive. If it all deals do happen direct to digital, you'll be literally able to count them on your on your fingertips. So it's not as if there's as if the entire content is being sucked out of the market. I think so I think there'll be enough and more scope for for films, and there will be, as I said, there will be a pent up demand, and I think we need to jointly work in trying to figure out how do we calibrate the opening in such a manner that it becomes I don't know, maybe we just come up with a good, I don't know, like a good film festival. Do we start out with classic films and everyone gives their content, and just to let's get Padmavat back into theaters in the IMAX format at reduced ticket prices, and just to maybe throw in an extra song or whatever. I'm sure there might be some stuff like that. So I think all of us will have to put our wrap our heads around it. The ultimate health for all of us depends on on the millions of people in India who come in to watch the theaters, and that's not going to go anywhere. And we must jointly work in making sure that that we encourage footfalls, whether they come for popcorn or just for the movie, whatever it is.
Right, Ajit, coming to you again, one debate that's actually been underway for a long time and that actually becomes very relevant in the current scenario more than anything else to safeguard the exhibition sector is the windowing between the theatrical release and the release of a particular film on the other formats. Do you think that needs to be relooked? And possibly, do we need to follow Hollywood and extend that window, at least, for a while, to protect the theatrical exhibition sector after it opens up?
I don't know. I mean, all your questions are contradiction of your initial stance that you will not have your theatrical or exhibition bias, but every question seems to be sort of coming from protection of theatrical. I think what I'm saying is this is time when we should not be posturing. This is a time of pragmatism. There is, I think that's my first point and a takeaway from this entire debate. And I'm very actually excited to hear Mukeshji because he's spoken very pragmatically. All of these things can be done when life is, back to usual, product innovations, what can we be windowing and all of these. And we meet on many panels and I hope we soon meet on those panels. At the moment, let's prioritize pragmatism. Let's address the stock which is stuck. Let's clear out the chain as much as we can. Number one. Number two, theaters will be revived only by tentpoles. I entirely agree. The excitement of going into theaters will be revived only by tentpoles. Yes, we will have a phase where some films will have to play the first line of defense. Let's use the Hollywood films. That's where some of our Hollywood studios such as us or Fox come in. So we have a Top Gun coming in December, so some of those titles can come in, they bring excitement. They also can play the buffer in terms of going first into the theaters and kind of reviving excitement, and we can all see what is the sort of response. But theaters will be revived fully only once you have the Suryavanshis back, the Padmavats back, the big films and the big stars back. That is really the reign of theatrical business. What will protect theatrical business, to your point, is actually being more like the single screen, where you give a great viewing experience and you actually do not burden the consumer with the expensive popcorns, beverages and parking expenses and so on and so forth, and where the consumer can whistle and he did not yawn for the 50,000 ads that are spoiling his experience. So I think we all need to introspect and simply answer the question, what will give value to my consumers, and the actions will come out of that. At the moment, it's a time to watch out for each other. Even if I do a few digital deals, I would want to take my exhibitor colleagues along and say, look, I'm doing this. This doesn't mean that I'm foregoing any windowing commitments I've given to you, but help me do this deal and clear out. Of course, with the big films, I will come because I know those are the fuel for theatrical, and we'll come back to normal life. I think that's how I want to think about this problem at the moment.
Sure. Mukeshji, any closing thoughts?
Yeah, that's what, as rightly Ajit said, see, first of all, Akshay, nobody has an answer to when the theaters will open. That's one question nobody can answer. We will all be very happy if Walt can throw some light on whether Tenet is releasing on July 17th, because I think he is the only person who knows whether the film is coming or not. So if Tenet is releasing on July 17th and if even a few in theaters in India can open, I'm very sure that will be the right film under the present circumstances for theaters to open. With that, I hope Tenet releases on July 17th. Let's all pray for that.
Well, that actually brings us to you. Is it not?
Sorry, what was that?
So you was talking about Tenet and the hope that it releases on the 17th of July as planned, and you're possibly the only guy on this panel who probably has any idea about it.
Well, my insight into that is that, Warner Brothers and IMAX, we've worked very closely with Nolan and with Warner Brothers and CineConf, and we expect to open at the middle of July. Warner Brothers and Christopher Nolan and his team, they're ultimately, and they're gonna dictate that narrative. We don't really know ourselves, but we certainly hope so. Most of the film was filmed with the IMAX film camera, so it would be an unbelievable way to jumpstart the business is to have Christopher Nolan's Tenet back in the theaters.
Fantastic. On that note, we'll come to the end of this. Thank you so much to all of you panelists for being a part of this. Thank you, Raghav, for having all of us on. And a big thank you to all of you who tuned in to listen to all of us. Thank you, guys. Over to you, Raghav.
Thank you, Akshay. You wanted to take up some Q&A, Akshay?
Sure, Raghav. In case you want to look at the questions and shoot, you can go ahead and do that.
Okay, there is a question from Mr. Ajay Thakur. He says, being a Marathi film producer, my concern is what will happen when Bollywood biggest crash their dates. Will there be any space for the regional films in Maharashtra?
No. I think the clashes are going to be tremendous, and I think that's why with some of the stock, if it goes to direct to digital, I think that will actually ease the dates of at least the mid-size films. So I think for Marathi films, we're one of the largest distributors of Marathi films. There is a pretty much a we have to figure out how to revive that as such. I think last year wasn't a great year for Marathi cinema in any case. So I think I think getting dates for for the regional films will be tough if suddenly there's a bunched up. So I guess again, depending on how studios come out with their and producers come out with their release strategy. If you've got a movie which is ready and it's about ready to go, I would suggest as soon as it kind of opens up, find the first available window, because till the others are not really finalizing their dates. I think 83 is the only one which has taken some sort of a chance saying that will come in January 26th. But everyone else is just waiting and watching. So if you're a producer with the film ready, please monetize it at the earliest at the theaters once they open. So.
Yeah, I think we have answered most of the things. Okay. Hope you addressed all the
One
required
question,
queries.
one question which I see, which I think somehow we escaped the entire discussion, is I think we're talking about demand revival, and we're talking about when will films land in theaters and when will films open up. I think at the moment, at least one big concern which is addressed in one of the questions is the way the government looks at this industry is as a very sort of disposable or least priority or come later kind of sector, non-priority sector. And I think one of the things that we need to do is really re-engage in a big way with the government and constantly push for finding some ways of restarting, because if we can't restart production, then then the restoration of supply itself is a problem that we will not be able to address in a long time. And it's important for even an exhibition business as much as for producing businesses that we are able to revive supply side as well. That's not something we discuss much, but I think to me that's really what should take precedence, and there should be repeated overtures both from the producing guild side and the exhibition side to try and sort of be a little more attentive to our requests of sort of easing out and letting us produce as well to restart supply.
Sure, but actually, before we close, Ajit, that's actually a very interesting point you've made about engaging with the government. And while a lot of representations have happened with the government, at least on the exhibition sector, because I know I was a part of some, one thing that all of us need to jointly address for our own revival is a very simple thing that can actually be brought into play by the government. So we realize that, in terms of public utility, perhaps we aren't as important a sector as maybe agriculture or food or the other, so to say, necessities. But one thing that the government can certainly do, if it shows the right will, is to find ways to actually block out piracy. There is a law that's in place. It's just about the effective implementation of that law. Do you think it's important for us exhibitors and you content creators and the distributors to actually come together in this time to try and block out those leakages in revenues which harm us and you?
Absolutely, I think you've hit the nail. That's a very big area of leakage in even good times, and it becomes even bigger in these bad times because there is no throughput through the biggest chains. So it becomes a big problem. I think the problem again is one of priority, and how do you engage the government to give importance to this when they've not been able to ensure implementation even in the good times? How do you sort of get them to recognize this as a big problem? And priority therefore remains our big problem. But I agree with you, if we can plug piracy, then it will certainly shore up and help our revenues in short and long term as well.
Super. All right. Thank you so much for these insights, everyone. Yes, sir.
No, Akshay, it's very important because I'll give you a small example. Like, when we put our films on Amazon pay-per-view, The day the Amazon pay-per-view starts, on the same day our film is available free for people to watch.
Absolutely.
Now, if that revenue is, we get that revenue, I'm telling you, none of the producers will be losing money, Akshay. That's the first thing, actually. Even before we start playing our movies in the theaters, if we can stop piracy before that, that will be the biggest achievement we have had, and the entire losses we have had due to Corona can be made up.
That's the money outside of value chain. So actually, nobody
Outside
gets
the
it.
value chain.
Absolutely.
Nobody gets it.
Yeah, because I mean, honestly, getting grants may be an ambitious ask, at least based on that perception of being a non-priority sector. So maybe things that are relatively lower-hanging fruits, which is as simple as implementation of a law that exists. So let's hope that we can actually engage right now and start that representation, because maybe it won't happen now, but once we start and we start working towards the revival of our industry, this is something that could actually play a great role in helping us do that. So perhaps all of us need to actually engage about this more than anything else right now.
And I think, in my view, the state government really is the big hope, because Bollywood at least is all based here. And while we may not figure in the scheme of things of the central government, we should really use all our soft power and our influence on the state government to recognize that a lot of economic activity is dependent on this industry. And I think I'm really sort of hoping that they'll be the one who will be more supportive and help us with some of these concessions.
Fantastic. Thank you, everyone. We've overshot our time, and thank you once again, Raghav, for having us over. Cheers. Thank you, guys. Have a good evening.
Yeah, thank you, Ashok. Thank you all. Thank you, Ajit. Thank you, Shariq. Thank you, Mukesh sir.
Walt, thanks.
Yeah. And my special thanks to all the attendees. And our next webinar is going to be on building and strengthening the cinema exhibition sector. So this will be again on next Wednesday. So visit cineconf.com for more details about all the upcoming webinars. And this current webinar's video will be uploaded on our website by tomorrow. So CineConf has been powered by IMAX in association with Theatre World and Network 208. Thank you all again.